And if you happen to be looking at your computer or your smartphone, you're watching me. And I'm talking about emotions today, emotional intelligence, and how to use the emotion roadmap to be better, to be smarter, to be more intelligent about how you deal with emotions in yourself and in others. I want to talk about a few topics today, but I want to remind people about what the show's about. The show's about helping people to cope, to learn how to manage your emotions internally, the emotions that you're feeling yourself, how to be more on top of what they're telling you, what they intend to inform you about, and how to control them and influence them. So while they may be always designed to be helpful to you, at times we know our emotions aren't always that helpful. What can we do about it? And the show's about helping you understand all the choices you can make that help you to decide how you're going to handle your emotions when, in fact, they may not be helpful in a particular moment in time. Now, one of the things I want to talk about today is the World Cup and what happened last night with the loss against Belgium after a wonderful run and a lot of excitement that built in the country. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And I encourage you, if you have some thoughts about that, to call in and share what you think is happening. You can see, if you want to call and talk to me, that the number is posted on the screen. And perhaps some of you may be just listening, so I'd like to at least tell you about the number in case you can have some way of recording the number and calling in if you're not listening. If you're not watching, but you're just listening. So the number to call, if you can see this on your screen. And if you want to call, just to remind you, the call that you make is designed for me to help you use my emotion roadmap to address a situation you may be facing where you are unclear, uncertain about how to proceed in a particular circumstance or situation you're facing, and you might like some help with it. Now, what I found is that a lot of times smart people, really good critical thinkers, excellent problem solvers, get stuck when emotions are in play. Now, sometimes those emotions are just internal, like you might just be feeling something internally yourself, where you feel like conflicted, uncertain, worried. Perhaps you're worried that if you make a decision that you need to make, somehow it's going to have a negative impact on people you care about at some level. Maybe it's family that you care about. Maybe it's work team that you care about. Maybe it's a whole company if you happen to be a leader of a company and you're thinking of making a move of some kind. So there's all kinds of reasons why emotions cloud our judgment. And I've spent a lot of years working with the pioneers in emotional intelligence, trying to learn how to manage those emotions more successfully than people do today. And one of the things that I've learned that's really important to ask is if what you're feeling isn't helpful at any point in time, for whatever reason, and the consequence or the stakes are really high and meaningful to you, then it's worth asking the question, if what I'm feeling isn't helpful, what might be ideal to feel? What would be better to feel? What might I really do to change how I'm feeling to something more constructive that's more helpful and is intended to help me to address whatever situation, opportunity, threat, whatever it might be that I'm facing where I'm really unclear at the moment. And if you call in and you ask me, hey, Chuck, I'd like some help with dealing with something in the workplace, dealing with something at home, dealing with something in my community, a club I belong to, some organization that I'm a part of. If you need any help with any kind of situation at all, and you want to call me, I'm here to help you walk through these series of questions I've created to help people deal more effectively with their own emotions and help them understand how to influence others' emotions more successfully as well. And so whether it is something just internal to yourself or it involves other people, if you've got a circumstance, a situation in your workplace or at home, and you're wondering what to do about it, and you're really unclear, and you're worried about escalation, or you're worried about making the wrong move, I can't promise you help to make the right move, but I can promise that I'll help you deal with the feelings around what you're experiencing. And that oftentimes, when I talk to you about what feelings are you having, what feelings would be better, more ideal to feel, and if I can help you to do that for you and for anyone else that's connected to what you're dealing with, options seem to appear magically that you might not have thought of before, and so you might come away, and often do come away, with a better choice. And if you call in and I help you you're helping everybody who might be watching this either right now or later to understand how this concept of an emotion roadmap helps to guide people to more successful outcomes, helps provide people with the wisdom and the knowledge and the capability of influencing how they feel, sometimes even changing how you feel, but always better in control of how you feel. And also helping you to understand what you might do to influence others' feelings. Because there are ways to influence others' feelings. There are lots of ways that I've learned over many years of working in this field, being one of the pioneers myself in emotional intelligence. And I'd like to share that. I really like helping people, making people's lives better, somehow making a positive, meaningful difference for you is a real joy for me. So if you've got something, anything really, that has to do with a teammate, someone who works for you, someone you work for, and you're okay calling in, you don't have to give me your real name. I don't care about real names. Just give me some name that I can call you so I can address you appropriately. And just tell me what's going on. Let me understand what your circumstance is. I'll repeat it back to you to make sure I get it. And then I'll walk you through these series of 4 questions. How are you feeling? What would be more ideal to feel? How do we get you from what you are feeling to what's more ideal for you and for others? And what are you actually able and willing to do? Of all the strategies we talk about, if you aren't able, it's not a real strategy. And if you aren't willing, surprisingly, if you aren't willing, even if you're capable, but you're not willing to engage in a certain strategy for whatever reason, that's not a real strategy either. So you need something that you're both willing and able to do. And I help you with that. So let me suggest to you that you give me a call if you've got anything to do with work where you're confounded, uncertain, doubtful, just really, really unclear about how to proceed. I'd love to talk to you about it. I've worked a lot of years with a lot of companies, a lot of different organizations, military, government, mostly with business, mostly large businesses, but some small, some medium-sized businesses. I've worked in public schools, private schools, universities. I've really worked in lots and lots of settings, hospitals, healthcare, high technology, manufacturing. So I've got a lot to draw on. And if I can, I would love to be able to be helpful to you. So if you want, I'll read the number again. And if you feel like you got something you'd like to talk about, then please give me a call. So 419, this is the phone number, 419-964-6082. When you call that number, it's a Google number, it'll give you a PIN. It will ask you for a PIN. And the PIN, if you're looking at it, you can see it on the screen. But if you're just listening, the PIN is 464-951, and then the pound sign. So one more time. The number to call is 419-964-6082. That's the phone number. Once you've done that, it'll ask you for a PIN. And assuming you're at the PIN now, 620-464-951 and the pound sign. So I hope to hear from you. If you got something, again, the show's designed to be helpful. I did the show for 17 years on WPKN Live. And in doing it for WPKN, they have a built-in audience. So there were lots of people that would call in over the years. But here, I'm building an audience. So if you're one of the few people that might be tuned in live at this moment, and you've got something, don't hesitate. If you wait, maybe you get to talk to me another time, maybe you don't. But in waiting, you're not addressing the concerns that you might have that are real to you. And you're not sharing in a way that could be productive for everybody that's listening to hear how I help you. Because the goal isn't just to help you. It's also to help everybody listening to understand how this emotion roadmap works. So again, I encourage you to look up on the board and make the phone call, and I can talk with you for the time I'm here. I'm here from 5 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. on multiple Tuesdays during the month. I try to go every other Tuesday, but depending on the studio schedule and my schedule, sometimes it's different. But I typically go twice a month on Tuesdays from 5 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. You can subscribe to my channel, CJWOLFE5. You might be watching this on Simsbury Media. If you subscribe to my channel, you'll always be notified when I'm going live. My channel on YouTube is CJWOLFE5. And Simsbury Media is nice enough to host this show. And I've been doing it for them for a long time. I think I'm the longest running show on Simsbury Community Television. So that's I take some pride in that too. Okay, so since I don't hear from anybody at the moment, I'm going to just talk to you about a couple of topics I think that are worth sharing. I always like to come prepared in the hopes that somebody might call at one point, but if you don't call, I want to be able to say some things to you I think that are important to be discussing. So like a lot of other people, I was caught up in the World Cup. I actually, in my hometown where I grew up in Massachusetts, I played varsity soccer. Now, I don't love soccer the way I love baseball and football and basketball, and I like hockey. And I sort of like soccer. I love playing it. It was fun to play it. I never really enjoyed watching it, though. And then the World Cup arrived on our shores, and like a lot of other people, I started to get interested in some of the stories behind who was playing each other, some of the greats that are maybe having some of their final series. And I got a little intrigued. And my three daughters, who I have with my wife Barbara, we have three daughters who seem to really got engaged too with the World Cup in ways that they hadn't been with soccer before. I mean, I actually coached all three of my daughters playing soccer growing up. So I do have a knowledge of the sport, and I do really enjoy, again, coaching, and I enjoy playing. And I really got to enjoy, honestly, some of what I saw over the course of the last several weeks. One of the things that was so intriguing to me to watch, though, wasn't just the soccer itself, but it was the fans from all over the world, their reaction to being in our country. Because as you all know, I'm sure, we just celebrated our 250th birthday of being a democratic republic. Now, I know people can be very critical of our government and the way it's run and the corruption that sometimes exists and how capitalism sometimes isn't the best choice because of greed and power and other things that people sometimes, crave as opposed to just a healthy chance to earn what you can, which was what America and capitalism provide. And it allows for young people who come from any walk of life to be successful, as you're seeing with lots and lots of people these days being very successful, coming from poor backgrounds, from situations that you wouldn't think were ideal growing up, and yet still finding ways to succeed. That's one of the beauties, I think, of capitalism. Where all systems, really, economic systems get corrupted because, too many people get caught up in the need for power and the need for greed. How much do you really need to be healthy and happy in life? How much do you really need financially? How much power do you really need? Well, those are questions that don't get real answers necessarily, except for you to just think about them and try and find what works for you as an individual or as a family or as a community even. But one of the things that I saw was our country through the eyes of the visitors to this country. No matter what channel I watched for news, it seemed like lots of people were showing all the different people from other countries saying how much they loved our country. It was so nice to hear. There's so much negative so often about why aren't we better? Why didn't we know to give women the right to vote way before it actually happened? Why did we ever engage in slavery? Why were we ever discriminatory against anybody? Why weren't we perfect? There is no perfection in life necessarily, but there is striving for perfection. There's always the goal of being the best possible version of ourselves as possible. And it was so much fun, and hopefully for you too, to see through the eyes of others how they viewed our country, our world that we live in. One strange circumstance, I think, and I say strange because I didn't know that most of the world doesn't have air conditioning. And then the kind of heat that we had the last few weeks, not only in our country, but all over the world, and people sweltering in places where they thought, we don't really need air conditioning. Okay. but it's nice to have, isn't it? When it's 100 degrees out, it's certainly nice to have. Now, I get that we need to be concerned about our planet, and I believe in climate change, and I believe in doing everything we can to make the climate as best we can for all of us, not just for us today, but for our children, grandchildren, and those to come. We want a healthy planet, a climate that makes sense and works. We want to do the best that we can to keep the climate productive. We want to do the best we can to reduce emissions that are harmful. Make sure that the sun's rays don't hurt us because of the changes in the atmosphere that are due to some of the things that we're engaged in today. So I believe in all that. And I also believe, though, that we also have to be reasonable about expectations and how we go about what we do. And I know everybody draws the line in different places, so I'm not going to tell you where you should draw your line. But I am going to tell you that one of the things that I heard that I thought was really, really interesting was a speech, two speeches actually, one by a Harvard graduate. I spent some time at Harvard myself, and proud of that at times, not always. But there was a graduate student giving a speech at his graduation, and he said one of the things that he hopes happens, and he was sharing this with all the graduates, is that we don't listen to others the way he's seeing people listen to each other these days, so that we can just wait till they finish so we can tell them what truth is, what our truth is, so that we can inform them about why they're wrong and why we're right. What he said was, I hope we learn to listen with curiosity and with the idea that, what if I'm wrong? What if what I'm seeing, the algorithms that are out there on the social media, whether I'm watching TikTok or Meta or you know, the X, the True Social, whatever it is I might be looking at, is influencing the way I see things, the way I think about things, and what I believe. No question about that. So what if I engage in conversations with people who I think might be smart but who disagree with me in ways where I look to see why I might be wrong, instead of just waiting for them to finish so I can tell them how right I am and how wrong they are. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to share that with you. You might want to try that, as opposed to the conversations most of us have these days, I find, where we just want to tell somebody why their version of the truth, different than my version of the truth, their version can't be right because mine has to be. Right? I mean, so many people dealing with that thought process, with those beliefs that what they believe happens to be the truth. Right? And then I heard a relative of Martin Luther King Jr. You know, they were celebrating on July 4th, lots of celebrations. She was asked to speak. She said, I like to take some of the thoughts from my uncle. I guess she was his niece. My uncle said at one point in his life that, you know, we all might have come over to this country on different ships. But now that we're all here, we're all in the same boat. So if we're all in the same boat, can't we learn how we can all row together? How we can set a direction, true north, aim for it, and all of us realize that sometimes our thoughts, our beliefs are out of bounds and not on track to create alignment? So one of the things that happened in the World Cup was we had a great run with the U.S. team, having some great moments, really. It was just so much fun to watch. And then I imagine many of you listening have watched last night and saw that the U.S. team, frankly, just didn't show up last night in a way that made anybody feel anything but shocked, really, or disappointed, maybe even embarrassed somewhat. And yet the whole experience felt like it was bigger than the one night. Yes, the U.S. team last night wasn't ready for prime time. Whose fault is that? Well, I will talk about it from this perspective. When you have a big moment, when you are on stage, maybe not in front of millions or even billions of people that might have saw that last night, when you're on a stage performing, and we all perform, maybe just for one or two other people at a time, but we're performing when we're speaking in many ways. I think Shakespeare said life is about performance. We're always performing. But anyway, the concept of being an important, consequential game, showing up as the best possible version of yourself, requires an emotional resilience, requires an emotional capacity that says, I don't care if I make a mistake. Of course I care, rather. But I don't care that I made a mistake in the sense that there's no quit in me. I'm competing to the very last end until the final whistle blows. I am playing as hard and as best I can. I don't want people to beat me to the ball, not a ball that I could have got to. I don't want people to intercept a pass when I could have faked. I know I could have faked and made a better pass. I don't want people to get in front of me and trap me the way that soccer players do that are really good defenders when I know I could pass the ball before they got there in time to trap me. I want to be the best version of myself as a soccer player. And even if I do make a mistake, which is likely because we all make mistakes and none of us are perfect, I just got to be good enough. I got to be good enough to compete and to show up. We may or may not win this game, but it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of being prepared. It's not for lack of resilience. It's not for lack of pride. We're going to give everything we have. But that's not what we really saw last night, was it? We saw people getting beat all the time. We saw defenders out of place. It was almost, for those of you that follow sports at all, and you watch sports in high school, you may have even played sports in high school, it was like watching the junior varsity play the varsity. And we weren't the varsity folks. We were the JV, or maybe even the freshman team. It was sad to watch. But on the one hand, at the end, I have to say I'm proud of the effort. I'm delighted with the fact that so many people from so many countries have a view of our country that goes past the horrible news that are on most mainstream news channels, where they constantly talk about all the things that we should be doing better. And that's partly what attracts clicks and views, and so I get it. That's their business. And positive news doesn't sell. I get that too. But I'm so happy that so many people came to this country, and when it's all over, are going back to their country, and they're going to tell everybody else in their neighborhoods, in their communities, in their countries, what a wonderful place this is. And hopefully it reminds all of us that we have a wonderful place. But another thing I thought was worth mentioning and talking a little bit about today is the fact that, it's our 250th birthday, and people like to say, it's not a great form of government. Yet, it's still the best one out there. There's not really a better form of government that anyone's figured out yet. And so seems the most powerful country, the wealthiest country. And I think part of that has to do with who are we as Americans? We are Chinese immigrants who came here to this country many, many years ago. We are European immigrants who came to this country, South American immigrants that came to this country. So many people from so many places, other countries all over the world. The most adventurous of those peoples came into our country and made us who we are. Along with the people that were already here. There were certainly Native Americans who were here, who had a wonderful, in many cases, wonderful relationship with the planet. And the Europeans, you can say, compromised that and did some terrible things. And again, we aren't perfect. We know that. Could we have done things better? 1,000 times, 1,000% we could have done things better. But hopefully, and this is the goal, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you've done in your life, tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life. You probably heard that at one point in time. And what if you woke up, you went to bed tonight thinking about, how do I be the best possible version of me? How do I get our country to truly be united, right? The united. We don't feel united all the time. But how do we get the country to be the United States of America? How do we unite? What brings us together? And wasn't soccer one of those things that just wasn't everybody, irrespective of tribalism and identities, however you define yourself, genders didn't matter. None of that. Religions don't matter. All that mattered was we were USA, cheering for our home team to try and go as far as they could in the tournament. Everybody. I don't think anybody was, well, I shouldn't say anybody. Maybe, I'm sure there were probably a few people out there that maybe didn't cheer for the U.S. team, that were U.S. citizens. But for the most part, I didn't know anybody like that, and I doubt that you did either. Everybody was pulling for the team. Well, that's probably why it was so disappointing last night. But the big picture, soccer's got a world, almost a world religion, if you will. Everybody plays soccer all over the world, and it brings people together from all over the world. And hopefully we take our rightful place. And we don't have to be the best every time, but let's just be competitive. And occasionally, let's hope we get the championship. Let's hope we get good enough to get the championship. Our women in soccer have won championships. The men, it's taken some time because the men around the world have played soccer for multiple generations, and they're, many of them, great at it. I have to say that Belgium team, they were really, really excellent. Now, I don't know about you, but are you going to watch soccer anymore as it goes on? I think I might. I think I might have some interest in watching more. But I am curious, getting past soccer, just thinking more about what does it take to unite us? We did see where we all came together and we all cheered for the United States of America's men's team in soccer. Didn't matter if you were progressive, liberal, libertarian, far right, conservative, whatever your political persuasion, didn't matter. Your religion didn't matter. Your gender didn't matter. What mattered was we were all united, cheering for the United States of America's men's team in our soccer match. So I encourage you to think about what else might you do that brings people together in your own families. So many families I have found have a real hard time with each other when they don't share beliefs. Now, sometimes those beliefs have to do with gender issues. Sometimes they have to do with religious issues. And often these days it seems like they have to do with political issues. And what I'd like to suggest as something that brings us together is that the overriding value all of us have, more important than any particular single or multiple beliefs where we might differ, is the love of family. For me, I hold that above everything else, the love of family. You might disagree with what I think is the right thing to do. You might disagree with me on multiple issues, but you're my family. I love you. And I'm not going to let anything stop me from loving you. I hope that thought feels right to you, because again, I recognize so many people are struggling with this idea that we don't all think alike. We have good friends that my wife and I visited, and it used to be a lot of fun for me to talk politics with people. I don't think it's fun for most people these days, but it used to be, because I used to think, I have an opinion, you have an opinion. I think you're smart, you think I'm smart. We both have opinions, and it's based on what we see or what we read or what we watch, what we hear, and we're not on the same page. But I would love to know why you feel the way you do. When you're not trying to convince me, I'm just asking you about why you believe what you do, and you're asking me why I believe what I do. And maybe one of us changes to believe the other person is right on certain things, and maybe not. But we both respect and appreciate and value that we can have that kind of conversation and be okay with it, whether we change or don't. There aren't a lot of people you can do that with these days, I find. But it's fun when you find people like that. So we have some good friends we can do that with, and that's a lot of fun for me. Hopefully for you, too, that you have friends you can talk with who might disagree with some things that you think or believe. Well, I do want to again encourage you to call in. If you got some thoughts about what it takes to unite us as a country, emotionally, what would it take for you to feel like um, we're going in the right direction, for us to do the right thing? What do you think? What would you like to say about that? But also, if you've got something that's going on, I want to remind you again that the show's called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. So if there's something on your mind where you're uncertain how to proceed, where you're unclear about what the best choice is, and you have a few choices and you've got to make one pretty soon, and you'd like some help sorting through the emotional experience of all of that, when I help you by focusing on what you're feeling about it, what you'd like to feel about it, how we can help you to feel better, even perhaps more ideal about what's going on, when I help you create that, life is good for you. And it's good for everybody that's listening. So again, I call your attention to what's up on the board, on the screen where you're watching me. I'm not going to read the number again, take the time, but you can. You can, first, you just pick up your smartphone or whatever phone you're using, dial the number that you see in front of you. When it asks you for the PIN, punch in the PIN, and then at the end of the PIN, put in the pound sign, and then you and I are talking. And then it's not just me talking, but it's us talking together. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So I've talked a little bit about soccer and the World Cup and what happens when people feel anxious, too anxious, and that's sort of what I saw on display when the men's team took the field last night. They'd been so good so often. And, it was really interesting. One of the star players, some of you will know this who paid close attention, got a red card. And if you don't know the soccer rules, red cards, if you get them in a tournament, it means you're out for the rest of the game. The team is down from 11 players that you start with, and if one gets a red card, you're down to 10. And you don't get to replace that person. You just play with 10 people. But also the person who gets the red card is suspended from the next game. So it's a little more complicated than just that. But anyway, there was a player in the United States that got a red card, and almost everybody, to a person who saw the play, officials included who didn't make the call, said a red card was not the right choice here. The referee should have given a yellow. The person that got impacted on the other team by the United States player did get hurt. And so there was a card possibly that should have been thrown, but it should have been a yellow card. And what the U.S. coach said after the game was that it's never a red card if it's not intentional. If it's intentional, that's different. But two guys playing really hard, going for the ball, and one of them got there. It looked like the U.S. player got his foot caught underneath the other player, and then after he just kind of tried to lift it up, and then it fell on top of the other player's ankle and injured him. Now, again, that happened, but it definitely wasn't intentional. Nobody thought it was intentional. So I don't know where the red card idea came from. But President Trump, who calls himself a deal maker, like him or not, he decided, well, if a lot of people are questioning this, I wonder if I should give the fellow a call. So he made the call, and they found some really something in the rule book that allowed them to take the red card back. Now, I won't go into all the details in it, but good for President Trump. He made it a fairer fight. But I wonder if that didn't change a little bit of the dynamic for the team, that they didn't know if that was the right thing to do. Because we're so divided. If you felt like President Trump shouldn't have intervened, and now we've got this extra play and we shouldn't have that, and somehow that made them feel off a bit, I wonder if it backfired a bit. Not certainly what he intended. And in fact, most people, even people that are, don't like the president, were saying that was pretty cool what he did, to be able to get the player back on the field. But alas, it didn't make any difference. But I wonder myself, sometimes emotions are funny things. And I wonder if it threw a few people off because that player was back on the field with him. Everybody thought he wouldn't be. Yes, we got a caller?
Hello. Yeah,
Hi.
I have a call. I have a call for some advice.
Okay, sure. Can I call you by your name?
Yeah, you can call me Trish.
Trish. Okay, thanks, Trish.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I just wanted to ask for some advice about like time management. Um, I just moved into my first house like about a year ago, and then I work a full-time job, and I'm in graduate school, so I'm like a very busy person.
Okay.
Um, And so yeah, I'm just struggling to manage my time to get things done with like housework and like work stuff and grad school stuff. So it's definitely been a challenge, and I've been struggling to find time for like myself and for like friendships and relationship stuff. So like it's definitely been a challenge. So I was wondering if you had any like advice on how to manage time better.
Well, Trish, let me ask you a couple of things. So, first of all, obviously, you have a time management problem in part not because of anything you're doing, but actually because of everything you're doing. I guess not, not
Yeah.
not necessarily. This isn't necessarily a fault based issue. This isn't like I'm procrastinating. I'm just kind of hanging out, and not doing what I need to do. This sounds like you got a lot of
Mhm.
things going on. So my first question is, in terms of trying to manage this. Is it something that you've already tried certain things that you might have already done that haven't worked?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I've tried different things. Like I've tried like putting myself on like a schedule and like working on different things at different times, but I struggle to like stick with the schedule, I guess.
Okay, so the obvious, spreadsheet, put things down, time frames for everything during the day. Well, I mean, again, that's an obvious one, and I thought I'm not going to recommend that because my guess is you sound really smart and you've done a lot of things already, right? And so you're going to know that okay, if I had a schedule, I suppose I could make this work. But what do you
Yeah.
think? What do you think makes you go off schedule? That's the kind of key here. What perhaps influences you going off schedule if you've tried that and it hasn't worked? Why do you think it didn't work?
I think I just like get distracted really easily. So like there'll be like other stuff that needs to get done, and then like I'll do that rather than like other priorities, I guess. So it's just easy for me to get distracted, and then like other things like come up, and it just gets like really busy.
Okay, so some people might call that going down rabbit holes. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the right, but it is something
Yeah,
else
yeah, that
catches
that
my
makes
eye.
sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I did find out, by the way, that from somebody who's a friend of mine who's a creativity professor who is a really interesting expert on creativity, said sometimes rabbit holes allow us to be very creative. So it's not a terrible thing, but here's
Yeah.
what I would say to you about something like that. Um,
Mhm.
I want to just ask before I jump to telling you what you could do. Is there anything you're thinking of trying that you haven't tried yet that might work for you?
Um, I don't know. I don't really have any ideas, but I'm willing to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay, all right. So there's not a bit, my reason for asking the first couple of questions was one, I don't want if I just suggested a schedule, we'd say, well, I already have done that and it didn't work. And so then I land up,
Mhm.
okay, well, strike one for me. So I like to know, okay, what has somebody already tried that hasn't worked for them? The second thing is if you have something that you're thinking about, then perhaps I can help you with that. And there's one other question that's really worth asking is, have you ever had a time management problem before and you figured it out?
Um, I mean, yeah, I have, but like I feel like I've never been like this busy in my life. Um, like it's definitely been a lot. So I think that's been a challenge because there's just so much going on.
So this is new in the sense that there's much. I mean, maybe some things have worked in the past, but there's nothing really to take away from that because you've never been this busy
Mhm.
before. That sound right?
Right, right. Yeah, that's
Okay.
true.
So the way that you get some emotional control over this, and I think you've already said you're interested in what I have to say. I always like to ask permission first. You okay with me suggesting something to you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So here's what I'd suggest, Trish. One of the things I found is really helpful is for people to find a way just to track how their emotions are influencing their choices. And here's what I mean. One of the things that since Aristotle and maybe before him, people have always said it's really helpful to be self-aware. And then people said, of course that's helpful, but what does that really mean to be self-aware? And so I'm going to tell you one way to be more aware of emotions and how they're impacting you. I find for people that go down rabbit holes, and I'm guilty of this myself at different times, but one of the ways that I get control back when I feel like I'm losing control because I've gone off in so many different directions and nothing feels like it's getting done is I check myself, and I encourage people to take a week and to try this as a tactic and see if it's helpful. And what I'd say to you is that check in with yourself. Your day is different every day based on the way you're describing it, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
but I'm assuming that you start your day somewhere between 7 and 9 in the morning. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And that lunchtime somewhere between 12 and 1 o'clock or 1:30, somewhere in there?
Oh, yeah.
And that end of day for you when you want to just relax a little bit is somewhere around 7 or so?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so I mean, it's typical for most people, somewhere in there. So one of the things that's useful to do is most of us start every day with the idea that we're going to get certain things done. Sound right?
Yeah.
So let's assume that around 10:30, and you can put this in your smartphone, just an alert, and do it for a week.
Yeah.
And just say, 10:30, how am I feeling? Just ask yourself, how am I feeling? Or what am I feeling? And is it what I want to feel? And what you find is at 10:30, you'll find that if you've gone down a rabbit hole, you were feeling great about the rabbit hole until you asked that question. And then it'll put you back on track because you got an hour and a half or so, or maybe 2 hours before lunch shows up, and you got a chance to clean up the morning. But it'll also just tell you about how emotions are driving your behavior. Emotions influence us even when we don't think they are. We're all real clear when we're real angry or really deliriously happy or something. But, most of the time the emotions are like breathing. We're breathing, we know it, that's how come we're alive, but we're not thinking about it. And same thing with emotions. So, but if you force yourself at 10:30, and then at 2:30, or 3 o'clock, whatever's mid-afternoon for you, same question, how am I feeling? Is it how I want to feel? And if not, what would I like to feel? And your brain starts to figure that out, and you get back on track for the end of the day. And then finally, the last time is at 7 at night, because you're maybe physically in your home, but mentally you might still be thinking about all kinds of other stuff going on, and instead of having that personal time that you need for yourself. And you just ask yourself, okay, how do I let go? I need to make some final decisions about what I'm doing tomorrow or the rest of the week or whatever it is that's coming up. And then I just want to either read a book, listen to music, watch a movie, go for a walk, whatever it is that's personal time for you, so you have some space for yourself. But I think if you track yourself for over a week, you'll find out a lot about what your emotions, how they're impacting you and how they're influencing you, and you will manage those rabbit hole diversions. And I don't tell you never to have them, but you'll manage them much better. Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. I will definitely try that.
Okay, well, I think it might work for you because, one of the things is it'll be fun for you just to even think about that. And then actually learning, kind of write it down what you're feeling and how it's impacted you. And then look at it at the end of the week and say, do I want to do this again for a couple of weeks until I really figure out how I'm going to manage my time better? And I think that'll help you, Trish.
Okay, thank you so much. That's really helpful. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much for calling in. I really appreciate that, too. You have a great day.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye.
Okay, so thanks for Trish for calling in, and I'm getting close to the end of my show. I want to thank everybody for listening, and this has been Chuck Wolf, the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel, and hopefully, Trish, that's what you'll be doing is taking the wheel and controlling how you feel as you go through that exercise. By the way, anybody who's listening, same thing. Check yourself out. You want to learn more about how your emotions are impacting your life? Spend that time thinking about how to take some time out of every day. Track it for over a week or two and see what you learn. A lot of people are incredibly surprised at how much their emotions actually have an impact on what they're doing. and how thinking about them, forcing yourself to consciously realize what you're feeling and how it's impacting you can make a big difference. So thank you for listening. I hope you all are working towards making the United States united, doing the best you can to be the best possible version of yourselves, and helping each other, all of us, to be the best possible version of ourselves. And thank everybody for being so welcoming to all the foreigners who are in our country. And to all the foreigners who might be listening, thanks for being here. And thanks for opening our eyes up to seeing how you see our world and how grateful we all are for you reminding us about that. So again, I'm on the air on Tuesdays from 5 to 5:45 p.m. Thank you to Simsbury Media, and I'll see you all next time I'm on the air. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye now.